Hey, this is Mike Herrera. You're listening to Magnified Pod.
This is a yelling podcast.
Shit.
From poking at you to plans and everything in between, this is Magnified Pod, the only podcast that discusses culture, religion, politics, and the entire discography of everyone's favorite left coast punks, MxPx. I'm Andrew.
I'm John.
This is our podcast.
Yes, our newest podcast ever, the 5 Iron Frenzy podcast.
Wow.
Just for this episode.
Nailed it. Nailed it. That
I thought about pod beats and beat casts, but
that I do like our newest podcast ever. God damn it, I wish I had thought of that. It's fucking genius.
yeah.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking with 5 Iron Frenzy drummer Andy Verdecchio, or Andy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll find out
Yeah.
what he wants to be called. I see him referred to as Andy, so maybe that's... And I don't know. Let's make it easy for the listener to not to have to differentiate between two Andrews on one podcast.
Sure.
There's only room for one.
Yep.
There's going to be some beatdowns, all right.
That's right.
So we'll be talking to Andrew in a bit, but there's something I want to confess.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that I just recently realized is amazing, who took me years to realize is amazing, because as we have discussed on our previous 3 Tumbledown episodes, it took me some time to kind of get into the alt country scene.
Sure.
I was introduced sort of with Wilco, and that being like, yeah, it's sort of, has that, the earlier records had that alt country vibe, but they quickly lost a lot of that.
Yeah.
Sturgill Simpson, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And after listening to a lot of Tumbledown and then hearing Drag the River, my heart was prepared to find Ryan Adams.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
And I feel like I've been missing a lot.
Yeah.
So I heard Gold back in the day.
Sure.
And I was like, I've heard this is a really great record, and I just wasn't able to ever fully get into it. And just yesterday, I threw on Heartbreaker for the first time, and was like, wow, this guy's great.
Yeah.
He's really good. So I feel like now I have many, many albums to look forward to. Of course, probably his entire discography is not banger after banger.
Sure.
But
pretty good track record overall, though.
what's your feeling about him?
I feel similarly. He's always been somebody that I've liked, and I think I really appreciate him as a singer-songwriter. But there are people who are obsessed with him, and I've just never clicked into that level. So I probably need to do my own deeper dive and just listen all the way through several records at some point. Yeah, I do like him a lot, though. I think you're right. The Gold is probably the gold standard for him.
I think a lot of people say that Heartbreaker is one of his best.
Those are kind of around the same stretch, weren't they?
Yeah, Heartbreaker was 2000 and Gold was 2001.
Okay. Yeah, he's also a great producer. He's done so many records that I love, and he's producing the new Jenny Lewis album that's coming out soon.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I have always liked him. I have not been...
So you are clear we're not talking about your first love, Bryan Adams.
I also like him.
Don't tell Ryan Adams that.
I think they're buddies or something.
I've heard some stories about about him, like someone yelling "Summer of '69"
Yeah,
at
he
him.
doesn't like that.
And then like I heard this story. I feel like I read this that he like got off the stage and like went and paid for the woman's ticket and told her to get the fuck out.
I think that's true. I think him walking off stage is not uncommon, or it didn't used to be.
Yeah.
A little temperamental, that Ryan.
Yeah. From what I've read, and his early band, Whiskey Town, was sort of fraught with similar drums.
Did you listen to his 1989 cover album?
I haven't. I've heard good things.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's one of many things with him where I'm sort of like, is this sincere? Like, I think he genuinely likes those songs and just wanted to play them. Right. But it does feel a little bit of a like, interesting.
Yeah, I think one thing I've heard is that one argument is that it sort of reaffirms the quality of the songwriting of that, Taylor Swift, whoever crafted those songs.
Yeah.
That they're just, it's not just because Ryan Adams is great, but because the songs themselves have the good bones for a good pop song.
Yeah. One confession I need to make is that Inner Circle, who I shouted out last episode, famously of the song Sweat, in parentheses, a la 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 long.
Because you wanted to push it.
Right. They did the Bad Boys song.
No way.
Bad Boys, Bad Boys. That was their big claim to fame, and Sweat was the follow-up.
Oh, man.
So I feel like I really dropped the ball there.
Yeah, little did we know.
Got to give their props.
Credit where credit is due.
Alt country legends, Inner Circle, reggae, fusion, and alt country.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So transitioning from Inner Circle, why don't we listen to a couple voicemails?
Let's do it.
We have some Riker. He called and left 1 3-minute message.
The maximum amount.
The maximum amount. 3 minutes, people. 3 minutes. And then he called back. So let's get in on some of that Riker action.
Andrew, John, this is Riker. Long time, no voicemail. First of all, Pokinatra. And one of my last voicemails, I said Pokinatra. So I just don't like you because the Pokinatra. I don't know why I pronounced it like that. I normally don't. I think a little paranoid on that now, but I think maybe I was just a little bit jittery. Even though I've left many a voicemail, I still had some butterflies in the stomach. I mean, calling Magnified Pod is like being a guest on the Ellen Show in the MXPX world. So,
sure. I mean, we have said that.
Yeah, I do dance into the studio every day.
Yeah, I'm the DJ, and then I get the music going, and then John just sort of, shimmies in, and then I guess Harry is kind of the audience member who's like,
yep,
or something like that.
That's correct.
Sorry about that. Hopefully it's understandable. But next, I just wanted to say, San Dimas High School football rules. What a time to be alive. This is my new favorite MXPX cover song, and December is my new favorite MXPX Christmas song. I didn't think they could write something catchier than Punk Rock Christmas, but they did. And the new album, as you know, is one of my all-time favorites. So I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community during a time when MXPX is better than ever. So good.
So let's just take that piece by piece. San Dimas High School football rules as the number one cover.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
I'd need to see a little MxPx covers list, which I guess is just the track list from On the Cover and On the Cover 2 mainly.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can co-sign that statement.
Just yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for some people who like that was probably the only Atari's song I knew back in the day. I didn't grow up listening to the Ataris, so that was kind of and it mainly resonated with me because I was a Bill and Ted fan. So,
that's funny. This has really revealed what a deep love there is for the Ataris.
Yeah.
Which they were always one of those bands I liked and I saw a couple times, but like they never really were among my main dudes. But I think for a lot of people they clearly were. So
yeah. But I do co-sign December. I'm into that jam.
I am also.
But Gimme Christmas is also on that list.
Yeah, I mean that's just their best song, period. But
yeah. And I'm waiting for the Ataris to cover "Gimme Christmas" because I think that's the only logical next step.
Wasn't there was some response to this? Rufio covered some MXPX song, and then there was like let's have MXPX and Ataris and Rufio play a show together. I don't know. Anyway.
Hey, well, I'm gonna be excited for the MXPX 5-iron show before I get excited about some other nonsense.
I have been wondering who will open for that since Chris, right? That's his name, from the Ataris, opened when I saw MXPX and 5-iron together last time. So,
you think there's going to be...
I think there might be.
An opener for 5-iron?
There was when I last saw the two together.
Interesting.
But probably something like that, like an acoustic solo something, maybe.
Mike sent out a tweet today. I don't know if you saw. Trying to get Josh Caterer to come and hang.
Good. I don't know that Smoking Popes are going to open, but probably just Josh Caterer. I could see that.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
At least Josh Caterer to come out and do...
Just hang out.
Just hang out and, I don't know.
Show up for one song or something.
Yeah,
like
Mike can... sling him an acoustic guitar and
I'd be super down for that.
Yeah, something like that.
And the other thing I wanted to say is Tumbledown rules.
Yeah.
So the self-titled TD episode, I don't think I've ever agreed with you guys more. Like just echo your sentiments on everything completely.
We expect that from most listeners, just to tacitly endorse everything we say at all times.
Mm-hmm.
I really value and appreciate when you guys have different opinions on things, or, you don't like Secret Weapon as much as I do, and that's fine. I think that makes us better. I value and appreciate that. So, I just want to say though, I am so glad we're on the same page with Tumbledown. They sound fresh, new, and exciting while maintaining a classic country western vibe, and lyrically, Mike brings his A game. So, just so amazing. Love it. Lately, I've been thinking about an alternative reality where Tumbledown was Mike's first and primary band, and MxPx is just a killer side project. So, maybe in this reality, Mike was born and raised in Waco, and later on he moved to Bremerton with his family.
Fascinating.
Another weird thing that's inside my head, what if there was an MxPx music festival? It could take place over a couple days and feature performances from all of Mike's bands. MxPx, Tumbledown, Arthur, the Cooties, solo stuff. And there would be different stages featuring friends of the band. I'd love to see some Social Distortion on the country punk stage, and bands like Slick Shoes and 5-iron would be there too. Anyway, I just wanted to share this dream.
Okay, so...
Should we start the Kickstarter for this dream?
Yes.
Because I want to see it realized.
I would love to have PX Fest.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a name.
Or something like that.
MXP Fest.
MXP Fest. That just sounds like people pissing on each other.
I assume that'll be part of it too, but
that is for the VIP ticket. Yeah, nailed it. Can you imagine this alternate reality where MXPX, and if he's from Waco, then I mean, move to Waco, we'll hang out.
Maybe it's like we moved to Bremerton, we hang out.
Maybe, or what if Mike was the one that was moving to Bremerton to hang out?
Just blew my fucking brain, bro.
Blow my brain, bro. I would totally be into an MxPx specific festival.
Yes.
So, Mike, I mean,
Hit us up.
hit us up. hit up us in Riker. We will be the main sponsors of the event.
Obviously.
We will bring in. I mean, I imagine like we'll have a magnified pod tent.
Well, I assume
Next to the main stage, so people can get all their magnified pod merch, all their goodies.
I'm imagining this being like Wayne stock from Wayne's World 2. And we'll be like, who else is performing? Old woman carrying a kayak on her back? No. Anyway.
Yeah, nothing like a solid Wayne's World 2 reference.
I mean, that's how I roll.
Crushing it. But let's get to that next Riker voicemail.
Hey, it's Riker again. Right as I was telling you that I was concerned my voicemail was going to be too long, I got cut off. So awkward. But I just had one last thing I was going to say. As usual, I have like a list of little things. So I was trying to get through them as fast as I could, but now I have more time. So anyway, the last thing I was going to say is that I'm road tripping to Chicago. I already told you this, but I don't know. I felt like it'd be fun to put it in a voicemail. My wife and I have tickets for the Friday night show, and we're so pumped. I can't wait to be in the crowd with MegPod Nation. Originally, I was going to start a road trip to Texas on the 28th, but when they announced the shows, I knew I had to change my plans. So now we're driving to Chicago, hanging out on the 29th, and then on the 30th, on Saturday, we're going to fly to Austin from Chicago. That'll be in the afternoon. So, I think it'll be a lot better. If you have any recommendations for places to eat, things to check out in Chicago while we're there, I'd love to hear them. In Texas, we're going to Big Bend National Park, but I'm going to be in Austin for a few days. I've never been there before either, so if you've ever been to Austin, have any recommendations, I'm all for it. Guess I'm just pulling you into my travel planning stuff here, but, might as well. But moral of the story, it's finally happening. Finally getting an MXP Chicago show.
Yes.
Finally going to heard that sound with the horn.
Yes.
I just can't wait. Can't wait to see you guys.
Yes.
Can't wait to be in the crowd.
All of it.
It's going to be so good. And anyway, that's all I had to say. And I think the pizza rolls are ready, so I better go and get those. Toodaloo, many smooches, MegPod for life.
Yes.
Boom.
Nailed it.
Thank
you, Riker.
So, okay. This bro has his priorities straight.
Pizza rolls.
He's got the pizza rolls.
Purple stuff.
He's got...
Sunny D.
Sorry. He's got... he's rearranging his travel plans.
That's right.
To fit in a punk rock show.
Yep.
Which is going to be awesome.
We should maybe do a segment in one of the next few eps about stuff for people to do in Chicago while they're here or something.
Yeah, maybe so, because people are going to be looking for stuff to do. So yeah, maybe we should think about that. I was thinking, I imagine people, if they're in Chicago, we might want to direct them to pizza spots.
Sure.
Especially if they're coming, like April's coming in from California.
Yeah.
Where they don't have a decent slice of pizza to be found.
But that CPK. California Pizza Kitchen, baby.
Got to get that barbecue chicken pizza, bro.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to give it some thought.
Yeah.
We'll make sure everybody's travel arrangements are and needs are met, so their visits are nice and comfortable.
Yep, that's our pod promise to you.
Yeah, the magnified pod promise.
Yep. Your travel will be comfortable.
If you are not completely satisfied with your stay in Chicago, you can speak to John.
Yep.
Speaking of April.
What up, my dudes? It's April. So I was listening this morning, and I had some comments for John. John, I was totally thinking about the tumble down skull, because it's cool, but I kind of have a no skull rule thing for myself. But I did have the thought that if Oliver Peck did it, then I'd be down. So it's really funny that you said that. I swear, man, we are on the same wavelength. Also, I think the pod needs to happen. I don't really know about all the Hanson discography, but Middle of Nowhere, Road to Albertine, we should definitely make that happen. And I don't know, I think I have more to say, but those are just the immediate thoughts that I needed to share with you right at this moment. I love you, Andrew. I love you, John. I love both of you guys. I love Pod. I can't fucking wait for Chicago. It's going to be epic. And that reminds me, I really need to buy a plane ticket. Can't wait to see you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Pod for life.
Yeah.
So
we love you too, April.
Yes, and she just texted me that she did book her flight.
Boom.
So it's happening. But I think it was me that made the comment about Oliver Peck doing the skull.
Right. But I did say I'd be down with that.
Yeah. And
so let's get him to fly to the show.
Yes, we'll fly.
Then provide tattoos for us afterward. Done.
That's not a big deal. That shouldn't be too expensive, right?
At MXP Fest. We're going to have an Oliver Peck booth where he's doing tats all day long.
Yeah, so just go to mxpfest.com/Oliver Peck tattoo booth for more details.
Yep.
And what was her second comment?
She's excited about the show.
There's something else.
Chicago.
I don't remember. Hold on.
Also, I think the pod needs
yes.
How could I forget?
Yeah. So Middle of Nowhere was my jam.
That's
so John,
the one with Mbop, right?
Yes, it is. Should we do that next?
Maybe.
Should we do Mpod? Or should we
wait to have April for Mpod?
We should probably wait for April to have Mpod.
Then we might have to be a potting on the fly app or something.
Yeah, we might have to, but yes, we might need to do that. But maybe I think we actually should do Pods or Pods Forever.
Yeah, we got to do that.
We need to do that one. But yes, Middle of Nowhere was my jam when it came out. Not ashamed, not embarrassed. And, we had a bunch of Danny Stairs. So let's see what this one was.
What's up, guys? Your boy Danny Stairs. Calling, reacting to John's lament about in his day, God we're old, how they just released radio edits of songs so that you have the clean version. It reminded me of Christmas. I was probably, I don't know, like 6th, 7th grade, whatever. And I asked for Smash Mouth's Fush You Mang. And my grandma got it for me, but wherever she bought it, like Walmart or wherever, it was the one without the explicit label. I was so disappointed. Worst Christmas ever. So I went over to my cousin's house and swapped the CDs out with it so that I would have the good one and he would have the shitty one. So anyhow, Magpie for life.
So can I just want to say, this is maybe not the takeaway from this, but you know how the Google Voice translation is often super, super way off on the most basic of things.
Yes.
Like, for example, for Rikers, his said, "Hey, it's Frank again."
Big ol' Frank.
Not our boy Frank. Not even close. However, Google translated perfectly Smash Mouth's Fush You Mang. They got that
Hilarious.
correct. All of it.
Wow. That's unlikely.
That's not even a thing. Those aren't even words.
I mean,
And they got it correct.
maybe it's based on like SEO somehow. Like people are Googling Smash Mouth all day. I don't know, Dan, but it sounds like somebody once told you the world is gonna roll you.
I don't think we can sing that much of that song.
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody.
I was not aware that there was a very dirty version of Smathmoush. Smathmoush? I got it wronger than Google.
I love Smathmoush.
Smathmoush is my Smash Mouth cover band. Catch us this weekend.
Who did you see that somebody did a reversed version of All Star where they just did all of the lines, the lyric lines in reverse.
There's like infinite number of versions of All Star
Smash Mouth parodies.
In his defense, I do remember that first record of theirs being a little punkier.
Then was Astro Lounge? Was that their next one?
That must be the one that had, All Star and that stuff. Yeah, that's garbage. But that first one had like Walking on the Sun. That was kind of a jam.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I'm sorry that your grandma bought you the clean version, Dan.
must have been really rough.
Yeah,
I mean, it's about as tough as me getting on the cover and not life in general.
Tough grandma presents all around. Sounds like she ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah, for Smathmoush, she ain't the tarpest
tool.
Tarpest shul.
This is the point in the evening at which I become perma-tongue-tied.
And we haven't even been drinking.
Nope.
This is one of the few episodes where we are actually not
stone cold sober. Can't you tell?
Entirely wasted. And this is Danny has some issues with me.
What's up, guys? Your boy Danny Stairs again. Calling with another complaint. You forgot to put up the spoiler alert again. Now I know what happens in The Departed. Everybody except the one dude gets killed. Matt Damon gets shot in the face. Like, I don't even need to watch the fucking movie now. Come on, guys. Spoiler alert. 2 easy little words saved me a lot of heartache. That's all for life.
Yeah.
I'll start throwing up the spoiler alert before instead of after, just like my hashtags.
Yeah. We will just say, like, I'll reveal the ending of every movie and be like, oh, by the way, spoiler alert. Spoilers, guys. Yeah, so I have, look at this. Some Guys Sheboygan.
That is a new name he needs to add to the list.
Some Guys Sheboygan.
What's up, guys? Your boy Danny Stairs again. Calling with a counterpoint to Brett's call, the first time, long time caller there. He said that the first time he heard you guys, he was a little turned off. And I just want to say, on the flip side, every time I hear your dulcet tones, I am turned on. Hashtag fully submerged. All right, guys. Back hot for life.
Thanks, buddy. Did he say Brett?
I don't know.
That might be a new contender for Gregg Gray. What are we?
Gregg,
Gene
Gregg, Brett.
Gene Gregg Brett.
Yeah, we still have not heard from Gene Gregg Brett about his name. Well, yeah, so
appreciate the support, Dan.
Yeah, appreciate your full righteous hard on for us. Yep.
What's up, guys? Your boy Danny Stairs calling to question John. Dude is hosting an MXPX podcast, doesn't know anything about MXPX, yet when Muppet Babies comes up, he's able to tell us who was invented Muppet, who the new ones are, that there's this ridiculous CGI, which I had the same exact reaction as Andrew. Fuck that bullshit. Anyhow, just a little strange to me that this guy knows nothing about MXPX, but he's a Muppet Baby expert. Of course, he also Googled it during the pod, which is typical for you guys. So I guess maybe I understand. Anyhow, I'm for life.
All right, so for anybody who didn't understand that, we were talking about the Muppet Babies reboot that is apparently happening with Jenny Slate as the nanny and them nixing Scooter and Skeeter and replacing with some stupid penguin. And
yeah. Well, I just want to say, last week Dan gave me shit for not liking the Muppet Babies enough. This week, he's giving me shit for knowing too much about them. This is the Poking at Chap all over again.
Yeah, it is. We can't please anybody with our hot takes.
It's true that I don't know anything about MXPX, though. That's fair.
Yeah, after doing this for 8 months or something.
Yep.
And being a fan since teenage politics.
Right.
We have yet to figure out.
We almost know all three members now. Or I guess they added a fourth, but we don't know anything about that one.
You definitely don't know about the fourth member. What is it, Mike Moen?
I think so.
Okay.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is Attorney Danny Stairs calling with a tertiary phone call for you. The reason I use tertiarily in that sense, I did mean it in the third level because the way I see it is you're an MXPX pod, that's level 1. Level 2 would be your Tooties, your Tumble Down, maybe your Mike Herrera Live from the Basement.
Okay.
Level 3 would be things that are somehow related to either of those. And level 4, anything that's not, quote, tertiarily or closer related, would be most of what you guys talk about on this pod. So that's what I was talking about. Try to keep up. Anyhow, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
I'm so pleased about that new sign-off.
Same.
That's, it was very jarring to hear, like, his lawyer voice at the beginning. He's like, hello, this is Dan.
Yeah, it does make me a little uncomfortable. So,
is that it?
Let me see.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's probably enough.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough.
That was a solid batch. We'll save some for next time.
Oh, here we go.
What's up, guys? Your boy Danny Stairs calling in support of my boy John. Andrew, he picked his top 3. He didn't like Secondhand High. Just gotta get over it. Put your big boy panties on. What, do big boys wear panties? I don't know. I do. I don't know if you guys do. We can compare in Chicago. I still always rocking the purple underwear just in case. That's what makes you clean.
Right.
It's an Old Testament religious rite, I believe. You just gotta read real close to the things. And I'm a strict adherent to Old Testament law only. This kind of devolved. I don't even remember why I called. Have a good week, guys. That's not for life.
Yeah, wait, what was he saying in the beginning? He's defending my top 3?
Yeah, so apparently because I like Secondhand High.
Okay.
And it's not in your top 3, and I have to deal with it. But then you start talking about panties.
Well, we did get a message from Tumbledown Instagram account.
We did.
With a sweet Secondhand High live link.
Yes, so...
thanks, Mike.
There is... Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. There is some photographic evidence that they have performed Secondhand High live, and Jack Parker fucking shredding like a boss.
He's good.
And I love that the video starts off with Mike asking, "Who's on the pot?" like he's some fucking narc.
Yeah,
Is anybody here on the pot?
He says some weird thing.
And then he said like, "I won't tell your mom" or something like that.
What did he say before Rock and Roll Girl? He's like,
it's like circus music.
Well, he said that, but maybe it was that one. But he was like, "We got a deal for you. You can't lose." And I was like, "What?" Anyway,
I love drunk Mike.
I love it too. I hope to hear it at least at one of these shows.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, maybe more so the Friday show than the all ages family show on Saturday.
Okay, Friday's gonna be dirty.
Yeah, so we'll get Mike all kinds of Patron shots.
Yeah, we will.
And Jose Cuervo shots for everybody else.
For the rest of the band. I think vice versa.
That's
Mike gets the shitty tequila.
Yep. Or I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get him. We'll have to get him some. I don't know, whiskey of some kind. I don't know if Bottom Lounge has any decent full bar.
I think they do.
I guess they have a full bar out front.
Right.
But I don't know. Can you bring Can you bring stuff into the...
I think they have a bar downstairs too.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Well, we'll find out.
We will find out.
We'll get to the bottom of this, figure out ways to get Mike wasted on Friday.
Yep.
So why don't we transition to our conversation with Andy Verdecchio,
Let's do it.
and just give that bro a call.
Let's do it.
All right, John, on the phone today with us, we have Andy Verdecchio. He is the original and longtime drummer for the band Five Iron Frenzy, also author and poet with one book out and another coming out this next month. And we're going to talk about both of those things with him. So, Andy, welcome to Magnified Pod.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you are our first non-directly MXPX related person that we've had on the pod.
Feels good.
It does.
Stretching our wings a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying to branch out, get into the kind of the larger culture of, some post. I don't even know what you call the former kind of Christian music scene, because a lot of the bands that we came of age with, you being Five Iron being one of them, MXPX being another, are sort of, there have been some sort of tectonic shifts in some of the content of the music. So, but one of my first questions is kind of want to get a sense of kind of how you came up, what was your family like? Did you grow up in a Christian home? What were some of your earliest church experiences?
My earliest church experiences were back east with my mother was a Baptist, not like Southern Baptist, but I don't know what you call that, just boring Baptist. And we went to church on holidays and stuff like that. We weren't real religious until we moved to Colorado, and then we joined this Pentecostal church and became very religious. It was all the speaking in tongues and healings, and faith healings and all that kind of stuff. So that's actually where I learned how to play the drums.
Okay, at the church, you just sort of got in with the praise and worship team or something, and just sat behind the kit?
No, they had a thing on Saturday nights they called it a door scene. It was mainly just bands that covered quote unquote secular songs and changed the lyrics to be Christian.
Sure.
Awesome.
But I didn't care. I mean, I was 13, so
yeah.
Just getting on stage and playing in front of an audience, that was cool, And of course, at that time, I believed in that stuff.
So when did you start getting into playing in bands? Was it shortly thereafter?
Apart from the door scenes and stuff like that?
Well, yeah. So, I mean,
actual bands that are actual bands?
Yeah, I mean, I assumed it was more of it wasn't just kind of a jam session, but you were groups of, were they actual bands getting together and playing at these doors?
No, they were actual bands that had band names and stuff like that. But, and of course, I listened to all of the, when I was coming up, I listened to a lot of the Christian rock at the time. And
sure.
I was really into Stryper, and I really liked Steve Taylor a lot.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
This is back in '87.
Yeah. What were some of the names of your bands back then?
The only one I can remember was Crimson Red.
Nice.
Nice.
Was Crimson spelled with a K or anything?
No, nothing like that. There was another band. There was another band that I played in. Actually, I don't remember the name of it. Mm-hmm. We did Joe Walsh tunes.
Okay.
It was me and this guy Roger and his wife at the time.
Okay.
And Roger was like this skinny, like heavy metal black dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he kind of looked like the dude from Thin Lizzy a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Like super cool, had a cool, like, you know, big hair and all that kind of stuff. He wore bandanas around his knees and stuff.
Nice.
I was 13. I thought it was cool. I actually ran into him recently, and he was playing at a place called Herman's Hideaway here in Denver. He's still doing it, so that's cool.
That's cool.
A little different these days, but we did like Joe Walsh tunes. We did a Pat Benatar tune.
Nice.
So you
stuff
weren't
like that.
doing exclusively metal.
Back then, it was mostly just classic rock stuff.
Okay. Because when did you start getting into metal? Because Exhumator was the pre-Five Iron group that you were in that had more of a metal edge to it.
Yeah, Exhumator was kind of like. I mean, I only played one show with that band.
Oh, really?
So I was in it for like 5 minutes before Five Iron started.
Right.
Okay.
But it was kind of inspired by like Circle of Dust and who was the guy? Clank and Scott Albert. Is that his name?
Sounds familiar.
From like Circle of Dust and Argyle Park and all that kind of stuff was what they were kind of going after. And those guys were all big Crucified fans.
Oh, sure.
Like that, so, which I was too. But honestly, I got into punk way before I got into heavy metal. I got into punk before we moved to Colorado.
We've talked a lot about on the pod how for us Five Iron were kind of one of the big early influences in terms of like talking about issues of social justice and how unusual that kind of was for the Christian alternative music scene. Was that something that was like intentional that you guys wanted to establish with the band, or did you kind of fall into that? How did that happen?
I don't know that it was like intentional from a band standpoint.
Sure.
Reese, those are the types of things that are important to Reese. So of course, you know, he's going to write about what he finds interesting and is inspires him to, you know, write. And so that's kind of just the direction it headed.
Sure.
Just because of that, yeah.
Yeah, I think for us and for a bunch of people, it was like bands like you guys and MXPX and others who were sort of questioning the Christian world within the lyrics and within the scene that was inspiring for a lot of us because, you know, that scene was sort of, there were things that were and weren't allowed. So to get little cracks of real punk kind of questioning that felt really good. So
yeah, well, I mean, we never wanted, I think it was intentional to not be status quo.
Sure.
You know, we did want to branch out a little bit. And I think at that point, the thinking was not every Christian song has to be about a Christian topic.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So I think, like, for instance, obviously one of Reese's big things is how the Native Americans are treated in our country and stuff like that. And so he writes about that a lot. And, you know, that's a topic that's important to him, but it's not necessarily like it has nothing to do with Bible study or Christian politics or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, one of the things that I've read quite a bit about bands that were Christian some years ago and maybe not so much anymore. I was curious that as a band kind of in that scene, were you seeing bands that were sort of claiming Christianity, at least by association or record label, maybe using that more as marketing? Or do you feel like a lot of the bands that you were playing with at the time were sincere in their professions of faith?
I think both are right. So think about when, like, most bands start, right? How old most members in bands are when they first start playing shows and stuff like that. Usually late teens, early 20s, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So at that time, their faith may have been very fervent. And, they may have been, you know, fully espoused to the cause and the belief system and all of that. But as you grow older, you see the world differently, and as you travel, like for bands that traveled out of the country, you sort of see how other people live, and you see the world in a different way. And then especially with us, we did, we took a lot of bands out on tour with us, and we, opened for a lot of bands that weren't Christian bands, and so you kind of see the way things, the way the rest of the world works and operates. And I mean, it's only natural to start kind of going, this is interesting. What does this mean to me? And then for me, that meant, beginning to question my faith and not necessarily believing the things that the band was espousing. But the thing you have to remember is, I'm a drummer. I don't write it. Well, I've written a couple songs, the music to a couple songs, parts here and there and stuff like that. But, it's not like I'm writing lyrics. Do you know what I mean? If you asked me, I would say that Five Iron kind of stopped being a Christian band right around the time Electric Boogaloo came out.
Right.
Okay.
But that's only because of where I was at, right? And I felt like a lot of the guys were kind of really becoming disenfranchised by the Christian music machine, and the Christian label thing and all that, and how it was just seemed kind of silly to us, at least to me anyway. I shouldn't speak for the whole band, but if you ask, say, Reese, he would say we're still a Christian band.
Sure.
Even though two of us are non-believers. So
Right.
And he's right in that he's the lyricist, the main lyricist, him and Dennis, and they're both very Christian. They're both on different sides of the political spectrum. I would say. I don't want to drag politics into it or anything like that, but they're definitely both believers.
Yeah. We regularly drag politics into our discussions, so that's fine.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't want to drag their politics.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah,
they can speak for themselves.
So how have you been able to kind of find that balance? I mean, have you been able to kind of make peace with the perception of the band as Reese, him thinking of the band as one thing and you thinking of as another?
There are two manifestations of the band, right? There was the first manifestation, which was the first fistful of records, from Upbeats and Beatdowns to The End Is Here. And that was very much part of the Christian machine and the Christian music industry. When we reformed, the reason we reformed was because we're all still friends. We missed each other because some of us had moved to other states and stuff like that. So we reformed under the blanket of sort of friendship, So that's why I say that it's different now with the current lineup, the way it is and stuff like that. I mean, we don't do the whole, worship songs at the end and all that stuff.
Right.
I think partly because Reese knows it would make Scott and I very uncomfortable.
Right.
But by the time we were doing the tour for Electric Boogaloo, I was walking off stage.
Yeah.
At the end of Every New Day.
Every New Day. Yeah.
Yeah. Respectfully, I would walk off stage. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. Like, hey, look at me. I don't believe this shit.
Right.
As far as that's concerned, there's two manifestations of the band. The first part was definitely very much a Christian band on a Christian label. And now we are just sort of a band, and some of the members are Christian. The majority of the members are Christian, and two of us are not.
I'm curious about expectations, because as somebody who's never been in a hugely popular band, how you temper those expectations of fans who grew up with Upbeats and Beatdowns being this very ska-centric record with this certain kind of Christian message, and then moving on to as you talk about, the sort of secondary phase, and kind of what fans expect from a band. I gotta imagine there's part of the band that's got to be like, I don't really give a shit. We're going to do our own thing because it's our own art, which has kind of been the whole message of Five Iron from the very beginning. It's like, we're going to do our own thing. We don't care if you think we're cool or not. But then there's got to be some of the, we're going to play the hits and play what fans expect. It's sort of a long-winded, rambling question, but...
No, I mean, we play old stuff. Almost our entire set is old songs off of the first group of records. Mm-hmm. We only play, like, this opening slot for MXPX in Chicago. I mean, we're only playing 2 songs off of... what was our last record called again?
Engine of a Million Plots.
Engine of a Million Plots. So there's only 2... There's only 2 songs off of that album.
Okay.
So, I mean, we know that a lot of our appeal is nostalgia, So we're not going to deny our fans what they want to hear live,
Sure.
I make most of the set lists.
Mm-hmm.
I put together the set lists and the intros and all that stuff. So, and that's sort of my perspective, is people want to hear the hits,
Sure.
If I were to go see, I don't know, pick a band from like the 80s or something like that, the Dead Kennedys.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to hear a bunch of
spoken word.
Jello Biafra, Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo Bay stuff. I mean, I like that stuff, but I'm there to see the Dead Kennedys. You know what I mean? If they were to play a show.
Yeah.
So I would want to hear Dead Kennedys songs that I'm familiar with. And I just think it's kind of cheesy to dump a bunch of new songs on fans. You have to cover your whole. It's difficult the older you get and the more albums you have out, because you have more material.
Yeah.
And you have to fit it into, in this case, 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Opener slot for the, because you're opening for whoever the headliner is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're headlining, it's maybe an hour and 20 minutes tops. I don't even think we've ever played that long. We might have on the last go around, but you have to put all of that material in there. Even though that sounds like a lot of time, that's a lot of. I mean, I don't know how many songs we've written, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a while there where we were putting out a full length record almost every year.
I mean, that kind of gets into something I was going to ask about, which is you had talked about in different interviews, I think, kind of part of what had made you guys stop the first time around was that you were feeling sort of like you either wanted to go all in on this thing or kind of be done with it altogether. So what? Yeah.
I mean, we were playing, there was no reason for us to be dropping off because we were still packing houses.
Sure.
Right.
But we just were not hitting the road enough and not working enough, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, look, guys, let's either shit or get off the pot.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I'm wasting, and I don't know when we're going to go on tour, so I can't start any other projects or anything like that. There was that part, and then plus I was not a believer anymore.
Right.
Sure. I didn't believe. I at that time I would say I was an agnostic. I'd kind of maybe a deist at best, but that was sort of the catalyst of the conversation, and it sort of went from there. Other people had their own views and ideas and stuff like that, but I just kind of sparked it off that way. And some people felt the same way, and some people didn't want to do it at all anymore. They were tired of it.
So with the current iteration of the band, like, is what makes you want to play and being excited about being engaged the fact that it's kind of you do shows kind of when you can because you guys are buddies and want to do that? You know, is it like what makes you want to play now? You know, excited about playing now?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a weekend,
Right.
you know, that I get to go to another state, have fun with my friends. I get paid for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what other reasons does somebody need to do a thing? You know,
Totally.
it's fun. All of us get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and we get paid for it. It's great. Yeah, it's a really great time, and we love the people that we see on the road, the other bands and stuff, or the shows that we do, the other bands that we see and stuff like that. It's great to hook up with old friends and stuff like that you haven't seen in a long time. So,
So let's travel back in time a bit, because you guys have been doing, especially in recent years, you've been hooking up with the dudes from MXPX and doing various shows. I think the last time you were in Chicago with MXPX, it was, I don't know, was it 5 years ago?
5 years ago, 6?
It's been a little while.
it's been a minute. Yeah.
It's been a solid minute. So, do you remember the first time you heard MXPX or saw them, or kind of what, before you even started playing shows with them, like what you thought about them as they you guys kind of came onto, because they came onto the scene, 5 years or so before you guys. What were you? What was your first introduction to them?
Poking at you. That album.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that album is stellar record. You know, I mean, most people say Life in General is their favorite. At least, I mean, that's probably, as far as production wise and songwriting goes, that's probably my favorite. But just as far as a straight punk record, Poking at You is a great record, man.
Yeah. It's for three high school kids, putting that record together as fast and as relatively technical as it was for young kids. That it still, to me, I think it really holds up, even though Mike might bristle at some of the songwriting and the lyrics or whatever, but I think you
gotta embrace that stuff, man. I mean, you're not the person you were back then, and it kind of reminds you where you came from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just my opinion. Of course, there are drum tracks from back then that I'm like, ugh, we didn't do another take on that live.
Right.
But
I think they sound great.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. No, I mean, I think that record's great. And then we opened for them in Blenderhead in Denver.
Nice.
Before we had a full horn section, we all we had was Brad. That was it, just trumpet. And most of the set was punk. And it was at this place called the Ozatlan Theater. And if I remember right, maybe it was snowing outside. And Tom had replaced Andrew, I think was their original guitar player. Yeah, Andy. I got to meet Yuri. Yuri's super nice to me. And that really had a huge impact, was just the fact that they were just really nice guys.
Yeah.
And we'd played with some other Christian acts back then, and some of them were not so nice and didn't act. They didn't act so well, unsupervised. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that, for me, back in the day when I was very, very Christian, if I were to learn something like that, I think I would have been significantly bummed out. I think it probably
Well, this wasn't like, I'd been in the Denver punk scene long before I joined Five Iron Frenzy. And so, like, people smoking and drinking and stuff like that, I just came with the territory.
Sure.
You play clubs, people smoke, people drink. It's not a big deal.
Right.
what I'm referring to is just
Being an asshole.
kind of,
Yeah.
like being full of yourself and acting like an ass, and
Right.
and being sort of disrespectful. Like, for instance, our house, we lived in this house on 6th and Pennsylvania downtown, and we all lived. Well, most of us lived there, and I seem to recall like a 3 a.m. Situation that had to do with fireworks and a band that was staying at our house, and it was like super not cool.
It's kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
Not just for your house, but for the entire neighborhood. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
So Supertones, or who are we talking?
No, I'm not gonna.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm not gonna throw any bands under the bus. That's not cool to do either.
No, of course we're kidding.
Yeah.
But speaking of Supertones, they were like, when I compare various '90s Christian ska bands, they were a band that I feel like they took themselves very seriously. They were very earnest, and what was it? Was his name Matt? Was that right? Would take time in his sets to like preach, and and that yeah, like that's the sort of thing that it's a very different approach to a band that you're using it as sort of
Matt wasn't the preacher. Jason was.
Oh, was
the drummer. Jason Carson was the guy that would pull out his Bible and give a little mini sermon in the middle of the set.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember who it was, but using the band as sort of this vehicle for ministry versus it just being art or just being fun, or using it to bring people together for enjoyment. I don't know if I don't think there's really a question in there, more just an observation of just the seemingly different approaches or maybe functions of the band, because a lot of their songs, you'd be hard pressed to find a Supertone song that wasn't shoehorning some sort of Christian message.
Well, that's what the song Litmus is about. The Five Iron song Litmus.
Yeah.
What's the chorus? Litmus test, a piece of paper.
Right.
Can you formulate your maker or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, our whole thing was like, with Reese, it was like, if I feel it, I'm going to say it. If not, I'm not going to say it. We're just going to roll with it. And there were some places that we would play, particularly this place in Pensacola, Florida. And they were not down with us, like, playing it by ear like that. They were like demanding that we have like an altar call and all this stuff at the end of our shows.
Oof.
Interesting.
And, Reese was just like, Reese is someone that if, especially if you're someone on the outside and you're trying to force him to do something, he's going to dig his heels in. Yeah. He's just not going to do it. Part of that was that just, that punk rock attitude that we had, that sort of don't trust authority kind of thing, and sort of like that chip on your shoulder kind of thing. That's because we all grew up, punks.
Yeah.
Right.
For the most part. At least I know I did.
Yeah.
I discovered punk rock in 7th grade. And that's if I don't include listening to my brother's records, like, Iggy Pop and Patti Smith, and he had the Ramones' first record and stuff like that. I used to listen to that stuff, but that was just like rock to me.
Right.
I didn't think of it as punk rock. It wasn't until I discovered the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag in 7th grade that I was like, yeah, this is my shit right here. This is fucking great. Like, I want to smash something while listening to this. I'm so angry. I'm in 7th grade. I'm losing my freaking mind. My frontal cortex is coming online.
Yeah, exactly.
My hormones are going nuts. all I want to do is find something to stick my dick in.
Yes.
No girls are interested in me.
Oh God.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
And-
yes, I do.
And then punk rock came along, and I was like, these are my anthems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pissed.
Yeah,
you know?
and
I don't know
that's-
why. I don't know why I'm pissed, but I am. And this music sort of makes me feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, take that dick sticking energy and take it to the pit instead.
No, I think I took it. I think it took it to my bedroom with
Yeah.
a box of Kleenex and the Sears catalog.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. We've all.
Pre-internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sears catalog, Chadwick's of Boston.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeesh.
Whatever had the women's underwear section.
Yeah. I think I caught a pubic hair in that one. Oh,
Yikes.
is that a nipple showing through?
Yeah, exactly.
That-
that was probably much more likely in the 70s and 80s.
Do you remember? That Sports Illustrated had a lingerie thing for a little while?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Aside from this,
aside from the
swimsuit?
swimsuit issue, they had a lingerie thing that they put out. Or maybe it was something else.
No, I
Anyway,
don't remember
I
that
just
at all.
remember. I remember a lingerie magazine, and
I remember the first Sports Illustrated swimsuit that I saw. I think it was like 6th grade, and I was like, how is this? This just came in the mail. How is this okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
taking it to school and being like, guys, oh my God.
so like I all my friends, their dads all had Playboys, but my parents never did.
Sure.
I think it's because my dad was a Catholic and he felt bad about everything all the time.
Yeah.
He was raised Catholic. We weren't Catholic. I had to fill the spank bank with other interesting things that like.
Good to use your imagination.
Exactly. I don't know what's under there, but I know it's good, and I know that it's going to make me feel good someday.
Trying to think of how to transition. But
From softcore porn.
yeah, I mean it is a through line throughout Christian rock.
Well, I
obviously,
mean,
but-
we actually in a couple episodes ago we talked about the purity movement of the 90s and sort of trying to get kids to commit to waiting till they were married to have sex and just all the shame and everything that came with trying to be like, sex is bad until you're married, then it's good. And a lot of that kind of guilt and shame that came along with it. A lot of which...
Who is the singer? Who is the female singer that was like, I'm a virgin?
I don't...
Rebecca something, I think.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I'm
But
Rebecca
there was-
something, and I'm a virgin.
And she would...
Oh, Rebecca St. James, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Rebecca St. James, and I'm a virgin. Fucking hell, man. Like, really? Like, you're saying that from stage? I'm the drummer from Five Iron Frenzy, and I'm definitely not. What the fuck does that mean?
Right.
Like, what does that have to do with anything at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's all about purity, and if you're more pure if you abstain, and purity, I guess, is what God wants, and so therefore you're more godly, and it's a whole. It was a shitty.
Yeah, I'll be
shitty-
honest with you. Like, that was a big sticking point. Like, the whole sexuality thing was a big sticking point for me, and part of like why I started questioning Christianity and religion altogether.
Was the way the church dealt with human sexuality or LGBTQ.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. All the guilt and shame for like boys that are masturbating.
Yeah.
It's the most natural thing in the world, dude.
Yeah.
Look around nature, fucking
Yeah.
monkeys do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a biological
Yeah.
natural thing. And, and as far as sex goes, it's like you can tell kids all day to remain abstinent.
Right.
But I guarantee you, at least some of them, no matter how afraid you've made them and how much guilt you've shoved down their fucking throats, they're still going to do it.
Sure.
So then what happens afterwards? Because now they have all this extra guilt that they have to carry around that you've, imposed on them before they're even able to make up their mind on almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And then of course the whole, like the conversions therapy and stuff. And
right. It's evil.
That's just so fucked up,
It's evil, man. When did that whole transition begin for you? When did you first start? With this issue, you were saying that's kind of what started. But when did you have sort of a kind of a light bulb moment, or was it sort of a
most people that are raised in some sort of religious environment don't have a light bulb moment. It's a very long struggle.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's a struggle of trying to convince yourself and, that what you believe is true, and fear takes over and starts dominating your thoughts of fear of like hell and stuff like that.
Yep.
If you're someone like me, things that I'm afraid of, I have to know everything about, right? Like I have this fear of spiders. So for like 2 months, I just learned everything I could about spiders. I'm still not okay with spiders, but now I know about them.
Sure.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So did on that, to interrupt for one moment, have you ever traveled to Australia? Because the spiders alone that I've seen online that live in Australia are enough for me.
The most venomous spider on Earth is in Australia.
That's
the
enough.
The Sydney funnel web.
It's enough for me to never want to go ever.
Yeah, they've got redbacks there that are kind of like black widows here.
Fuck that. No, fuck that. I'm not going to your desert spider, country.
They've got like an equivalent to a hobo spider there. But the worst one is by far the funnel web spider, and they've got almost every deadly snake on the planet.
Yeah.
There's like at least one on that island.
Yeah,
you can't go in the ocean either.
No.
It's blue bottles and Portuguese man of war and all kinds of shit.
Oh my god!
But I've never been there.
I was gonna say you guys know a lot about.
I've been to New Zealand, which is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
There's nothing on New Zealand that's dangerous.
we have some Australian listeners, and so I apologize to our listeners in Australia, but Australia terrifies me, and
I want to go. One of my favorite bands is from there.
Who's that?
Frenzelrom?
The Living End.
Oh yeah, talking about upright bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have been to Australia and did not encounter those things. However, I understand your concern. But okay, were you? I feel like you were making a larger point.
Sorry,
before we interrupted you.
Yeah, I railroaded your larger point.
Oh no, it was just that I think one of the sticking points was like the concept of hell and
yes,
right,
and so like I said, I was raised in a Pentecostal church, so I was constantly afraid that I was going to slip up and miss the rapture or something like that.
God, right.
Or maybe I was not right with God and I got hit by a bus and I would be doomed forever.
Yeah.
Did
you grow up with the A Thief in the Night movie?
Oh yeah, Thief in the Night, Distant Thunder. There's 3 of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
there's Distant Thunder, Thief in the Night, and there's another one. And there was one that was called The Return.
Okay.
Did you ever have do hell houses?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we had the aborted babies and all that stuff.
Yikes.
I mean, it's
really messed up, dude. The church that I belong to, and while it may not fit in the literal definition of a cult, it's a cult. I mean, Christianity in and of itself is a death cult. not everyone that believes in Christianity, it believes in, the Bible and Christianity, take it that far,
Sure.
but obviously there are levels of sort of, I don't want to say levels of belief, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Right.
But yeah, some of that shit is just terrible, awful.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's like it really makes me sick to my stomach that I was a part of some of that stuff.
One thing we've talked a lot about on the show is, I think there's something to the idea that if you're burning so bright, can you sustain that long term, And that scene of kind of the 90s Christian bookstore alternative universe was one that encouraged such bright burning that a lot of folks that we talk to and talk to on the show, we're not able to keep that up. And so, just one thing between Andrew and I, like, I think, so I didn't grow up as conservative. And I think for a lot of folks, the more conservative you grew up, the more there's a reason to break away from that. And, I've talked about how I grew up kind of on the periphery of evangelical stuff. I grew up, Episcopalian, so I wasn't as affected by it, and I'm still a Christian, but it wasn't the break that was required for a lot of kids. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of a long-winded preamble, but I feel like, you guys were a beacon within the scene for a lot of kids who saw something that gave permission to question a little bit. And, I remember you were talking about, Reese not wanting to be forced into a certain kind of performance or whatever. And I know you've talked about toward the end of kind of the first iteration of the band playing mainly Christian venues and stuff, and how, that was an often kind of fundamentalist leaning world.
Well, when we first started, we didn't play
Right.
almost any Christian venues. We
Right.
played clubs around Denver. We played the Mercury Cafe a lot. We played this place called the Raven. It was mainly in some coffee houses here and there and stuff like that. But,
Sure.
they were mostly clubs.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we got signed that we started playing like quote unquote Christian shows,
Sure,
churches
yeah.
and shit like that.
Yeah, and I remember, it was like March 2003, just after the Iraq War started, and Reese said something on stage about, like, we just started bombing Iraq, and a lot of people in the crowd cheered. And I could just tell, like, from his response to that and you guys on stage that that's not what he was going for with that.
Yeah.
And it was just this moment for me of being like, oh, I'm not, like, a part of whatever this is. And,
it was little things like that too that were sort of catalysts for me to go like, man, like some of these people are not good people.
Right.
They're really bad people.
Yeah.
When I finally let my guard down and didn't care what people think and stuff like that, I wasn't like out there with it, like shoving it down everyone's throat, but I was definitely, I'm not ashamed to say that I wasn't a Christian.
Right.
And, people were brutal to me.
Yeah.
Especially in
fans?
churches. Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
That's shitty.
Yeah, it was brutal, So, and it's funny, you travel the whole United States and you hear all of the same phrases. Mm-hmm. All of what we used to call Christianese stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the same stuff over and over and over. And these guys are all reading the same book and sharing one mind of a person that has, in my opinion, probably a very slight intellect. I think me realizing, oh, I'm one of these people. Mm-hmm. What do I believe? I don't know. All I believe is what I've been told to believe.
Right.
It's like Charles Manson said that. I believe what I'm told to believe, don't you? Mm-hmm. I'm not a Charles Manson fan. But,
No.
There is a slight element of truth in that,
Sure.
When you're a kid, you believe Santa Claus is real.
Right.
You know, you believe the Easter Bunny's real. Tooth Fairy.
Right.
Slowly you become older and you begin to realize that these things are falsehoods made up by your parents to help you behave yourself.
Right. And
You know, and then the next logical step is to go, well, what else is a falsehood that's just meant to keep me in line?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have any reason to not believe my parents or what they were sharing with me that they believed, because, you know, my parents kept me safe. They told me the truth about practically everything else. And so why would what evidence did I have to be like, oh, well, no, I don't believe that there is a deity who died for my sins because I'm going to this place called hell. I was not, I bought a lot of that stuff very, very easily. And
Did you guys ever used to drive down the street and lean out the window and tell people Jesus loves them?
I fortunately did not do that, but I did give a presentation in high school about, we had to give it was in one of my communications classes or something, about the person we admire the most. And I did mine on
the big guy.
Spoiler alert, Jesus. And I
wasn't Josh McDowell.
Yikes! No. Yeah, so I was one of those people that John had mentioned about burning bright, and I was like super in your face about my Christianity, to the point where I stood up in front of my high school classes and told them about Jesus, or wrote articles for my school newspaper about abortion, that kind of thing. That I went to Cornerstone and they had the Rock for Life tint, and so
Brian Kemper,
and I bought all of it, and it wasn't until I'm going to be 35 next week, and it really wasn't until maybe I was like 29 that I really started actively wrestling with, what do I actually believe? Am I?
That's pretty close to where I was at too, around in my late 20s.
Yeah, it took a long time. I was the skin of my teeth. I was holding on to this. I stopped calling myself a Christian, but I wouldn't deny it. If someone asked me, like, if I was a Christian still, I would say, I wouldn't deny it, even though internally I was like, I don't know what I believe.
Yeah. Have you checked out the Holy Kool-Aid guy, the YouTube channel?
No.
Holy Kool-Aid. It's pretty cool. This guy is, he's, he clearly was deeply influenced by that 90s Christianity, early aughts Christianity, that was super like conservative and in your face, and now he's also an atheist, and his I don't know if you guys are atheists, but
I am.
He is, and he talks about a lot of that kind of stuff. His channel's pretty cool. You should check it out.
Cool. Sort of along those lines, I was going to ask, we've talked about how we kind of see both sides of this, that like, the alternative Christian scene is kind of gone, which is a little bit sad because it did feel special for us, but also it's probably good because of how kind of homogenous it was. Like we were saying, there wasn't a lot of room for anything that didn't look like, X. So I think for kids today, those lines are blurred more. There's not as much of a distinction. But how do you kind of look back on that time? Do you think it's sad and good that it's gone? Do you think one more than the other?
It's a mixed bag, Yeah. I mean, there were great times. We had a lot of fun on the road.
Yeah.
Touring with Reliant K and Switchfoot and the Smiley Kids and the W's and and the Insiders and the Supertones. I mean, we had fun on those tours.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I mean, nobody looks back on their youth and is 100% happy with how they acted and stuff like that.
Sure.
I mean, maybe it's more of a mixed bag for me because of the situation, but nobody looks back at when they were in their 20s and like, I was the paragon of virtue and grace when I was in my 20s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always made the best decisions.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it's a mixed bag.
I wanted to talk about ska for a moment because there was this sort of decided shift in the music. And I remember reading about, feeling like you guys as a band didn't want to just be a part of this third wave ska trend that would likely kind of die out, and trying to form a new sound that would maybe kind of carry on into the future. But I'm curious with, I don't know if you're familiar with the Back to the Beach Fest. So it's a festival in Huntington Beach that's largely ska and punk bands. And people are talking about maybe a potential fourth wave.
Yeah, man, I saw that on, like, that's like a thing right now.
Yeah.
I saw it on Facebook, like a couple people like, the fourth wave is coming, and I'm like, dude.
But no, like, so have you heard of...
I mean, if it does, that's great, but...
Have you heard of the Interrupters?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they're
the
like...
Disney ska band?
Burn notice.
Wow.
I like them. My kids love them.
Okay.
But they're very Disney ska.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. I love that. I love that record that they put out last year.
I like the one before it.
Okay.
The one with the guy and he's like smiling and he's got sunglasses on.
Yeah, like I can't remember what that's called. But yeah, I mean, Goldfinger, Real Big Fish, Streetlight Manifesto, Aquabats, Less Than Jake, Say Ferris, to name a few. English Beat are going to be playing at...
they're coming here to Denver, man. I hope I can go to it.
Yeah, man.
That'd be fun.
So, I'm just curious. Like, there have been some allusions to, at least you posted something on Instagram last year about some 5-iron ideas that you burned onto a CDR, and whether or not 5-iron will...
We're still working on it.
So there's...
I mean, I know... Here's the thing, man. We don't have a record label, and we could do whatever the hell we want.
Right.
And if, the great thing about that is we can write a record that we're really proud of.
Sure.
The second part of that is we all have wives and jobs and kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And things take precedent. Things get pushed on the back burner further and further and further.
Sure.
So, but, Scott, Reese, and Dennis have been working for about a year on this record, back and forth over, sending tracks back and forth over email. And I'll tell you, I like it a lot. It's definitely not like any other 5-iron record.
Intriguing.
This, it even goes dub in some places.
Ooh, I'm into that.
But I wouldn't say that we're going to break any new ground or anything like that. You know what I mean? As far as a fourth wave of ska, I mean, yeah, well, Real Big Fish never stopped.
Right.
Sure.
They never stopped. They just kept going and going and going and going.
Yeah, I mean...
Which is probably, to their... That's part of why they were able to keep going, is because they never stopped.
You're saying you would...
You are not ushering in the fourth wave of ska.
Yes, so...
No, I wouldn't say we're ushering anything in at this point.
No. Hey, well, if MXPX's year last year's any indication of what a successful Kickstarter campaign can do in 2018, 2019, and what fans are willing to, shell out. I mean, Because
wasn't it? Didn't Five Iron set the record for Kickstarter?
Did you? Yeah. What was it? 20 the year? Because you did that for your
Kickstarter was 2011.
Right, but wasn't that like at the time the most successful campaign ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until whoever that girl was that got like over $1 million or something like that, but she had investors and shit.
Right. Anyway. Well.
So let's talk murder.
Oh, dude, now you're talking. You're talking.
Okay, so John here, something that you two have in common that you guys can talk about, because I'm not so much into it, as horror movies. I was curious what some of your favorite horror movies are, and maybe John could talk about some of his as well.
Sure.
What
like,
genre?
Recent ones, maybe we can.
Recent ones? My favorite recent ones. Most of the A24 stuff is pretty good.
Yeah, man. Hereditary
was amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I've watched that movie probably 6 or 7 times at least.
Yeah. Blew my mind.
The Witch is amazing.
Ugh, so
that
good.
film is so good.
Yeah.
I bought Suspiria and I watched it
the
the other night. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't I'm torn on that one because I love the original so much, but I feel like they do a different thing with this one. So I'm into it.
They definitely, I mean, it's not a copy and paste sort of remake.
No, it's very
They definitely do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But and it doesn't have the color palette of the original, the Dario Argento.
Right. That's a lot of what kind of makes it what it is. But.
Yeah, I mean, which is what I loved about the original was the reds and the blues and the way they really pop out on the screen. It looks almost sort of, I don't know, like techno pop almost in a way, you know.
Totally.
Neon colors and stuff like that. And this one is definitely more grays and darks, and so, but it's got that great 70s, you know, fake blood that's like, it looks like the red paint that would come in the big tub
right.
in grade school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
But some of that stuff, it's obviously fake, but it sort of lends itself to the my attachment to the film. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So
where do you?
But I like the new Suspiria. I have to watch it a few more times before I really can say, oh, that was great or that was okay. But
I
definitely liked the first viewing of it.
I thought the Tom York score was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was great. You know what movies got me into some new bands? Was The Void.
Oh yeah, that movie's wild.
The score from that was written by a band called Lustmord.
Okay. And
their stuff is awesome.
It's kind of like
so great.
Synthy, right? Like.
It's really weird.
Cool.
It's very atmospheric type of music. It's and then there's another band called Vestigial.
Okay.
This is really good.
Cool.
But The Void was great. Very Lovecraftian type of horror.
Yeah.
A lot of fun to watch. It wasn't a real thinker.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. Speaking of Lovecraftian, props to your Cthulhu tat.
Thank you.
That looks awesome.
Thanks, man. My friend Shannon put that on me. Shannon is cool. Who I do the books with, so she's my illustrator. Cool. And I'm her writer.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about both October and Little later if you're up for that. Yeah, but sure. I'm a fan of her artwork for sure. So that's really cool. Well, this has been the horror movie segment.
Okay, we could be if you want to be done.
I mean, I'm
honestly right now my bigger attraction is true crime stuff.
Right. Sure. Transitioning into Andrew's segment, perhaps.
Yeah, I've been. So my wife hates all that stuff. So
mine too.
anytime I watch or listen to any kind of a podcast or a documentary or something, I have to do it by myself. And I just
It's the best way to do stuff.
yes, just lonely with no love.
Right.
So yeah, I just mentioned this on our last episode, binging the Bundy tapes, 4-part series. Have you checked that out yet?
Oh yes, yes.
It's not really anything new.
Here's the thing about people that are obsessed with this stuff, like serial killers. Like for me and my wife's friend Megan, who I talk to about this stuff occasionally. It's not that we're like, ooh, like these serial killers are cool and they're our heroes.
Right.
It's exactly the opposite. It's like what was going through their minds when they were doing this shit. And
Right.
And also, what's even more interesting to me is the sort of detective element. The police work that's done, and for instance, in the Bundy case, part of his. One of the things he used to his advantage was the fact that police wouldn't share information across even county lines, not even just state lines, And
there was no easy way to do it, even if they wanted to.
Yeah, it was all rotary phones and U.S. mail.
Yeah,
it says in the documentary.
Yeah, so he could always be a step ahead of everybody because. It's like, they could send some information, but he could probably be in another state by then.
Bundy's interesting because he's an enigma. He's almost like a Manson kind of figure.
Yeah.
Obviously he's very charismatic. Well, he was a sociopath. Most sociopaths are charismatic. But
but being a good-looking dude didn't hurt either.
Right.
I think if he
charming.
If he was ugly and kind of brash, then I think it would have been a different story.
Right.
He wouldn't have been able to coerce maybe as many people if he were as
well. When you look back, when you go through these different serial killers, they never look like it's one of the quotes from that series that really got me was, the serial killer, the killer isn't ever what you expect. It's not a snarling, drooling, crazy maniac looking guy in the
with a twirly mustache or like
with pointed teeth or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Like Dennis Rader is a good example. He looked like he went to church. He, took his kids to church. He looked like the guy next door, but he brutally murdered and strangled all these women, in Park, Kansas, and in the 1980s, 70s and 80s.
Yeah, or or Albert Fish. This old, distinguished-looking gentleman that. He was an old man, that was definitely not what people thought of as a serial killer. Hundreds of people.
Have you checked out Web Sleuths at all?
I haven't.
The
no.
website. So it's an online forum for people that are trying to solve current like missing persons cases, and it's an international network of people that connect on this website to get information. And I learned about it through this series called The Killing Season. Did you ever see a documentary called Killer Legends or Cropsy?
Oh, Cropsy is really interesting. I saw that.
Yeah, Cropsy is good, but it's the same two that did those two documentaries. It's called The Killing Season, and it's about Lisk, the Long Island serial killer. That's where I found out about it. That's a really good series too. Much longer and much more frightening than any other serial killer documentary I've ever seen. Who's the long haul trucker guy that got caught? can't remember his name. See, I'm kind of like a almost like a stay-at-home mom. Because I just watch, I watch serial killer documentaries and read serial killer books and murder mystery books.
Right.
So my friend Megan, the one I was telling you about,
Yeah.
it's a friend of my wife's. She just texted me like a couple minutes ago. I had my phone on silent, but she's like, "Did you watch the Bundy tapes yet?" I was like, "Yeah, man."
I think the takeaway that I mentioned last episode was if you wanted to increase your chances of getting away with murder, all you had to do was kill somebody before DNA was discovered as evidence.
What was the John Mulaney bit where he's like,
Yes.
in the old days?
Yeah, it's like, oh, sir, there's blood all over the floor. Gross. Mop it up. Now back to my hunch.
Let me talk about my hunch.
Right.
Yep.
I know what we'll do.
Let's
we'll
draw
put tape around his body
so we know where he was. Yes. Fellow Mulaney head over here.
Oh yeah, he's great as Peter Porker too.
Yeah.
I've yet to see the Spider.
It's pretty awesome.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best Spider-Man movie.
It's pretty cool.
It looks super cool too.
Yeah.
I did appreciate. I heard he had some R-rated outtakes.
Oh really?
That he
I didn't
did.
know about that.
Yeah, they showed this.
Oh, Mulaney did?
Yeah, Mulaney did. So they showed the clip. I think it was on Seth Meyers, where they showed this little clip of him just. They were like, yeah, just say whatever you want, and so he was just like saying all sorts of, obviously inappropriate stuff that would never make it into the movie. But
that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny as hell.
So there's a few books you might be interested in too.
Let's hear
it. I'll Be Gone in the Dark, obviously.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna bring that up.
Michelle McNamara. I've been wanting to read that, and to me it just like how that case came about.
Yeah.
Just so soon after she died. It just felt like it feels like poetic in a way that but also just so cruel and unfair, and but yeah, that like when she died, it was just so heartbreaking, and but yeah, I have been meaning to.
It's great. It's so good.
Her writing is. I've only read a little bit, but her writing is pretty incredible in that book.
Another one is called. There's one about Ted Bundy called Killer Beside Me, which is pretty good, and of course, BTK about Dennis Rader is pretty good as well.
Speaking of good writers.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I nailed it. So let's talk about.
Speaking of good writers, let's talk about somebody else.
let's talk about Michael Crichton.
What do you really think about The Firm?
October, a book of poetry, derangements, and curiosities.
Indeed.
Came out in 2017, and you have a new book, Little, coming out on February 11th, which is, as the description says, it's a children's book, but it's about a nightmare, and it's done in rhyme.
It was birthed from a nightmare.
Birthed from a nightmare. Okay.
Yeah.
So first, let's talk about your writing style. I haven't had a chance to read either of these books. So when did you start writing poetry, and kind of what was the genesis of starting to put these works into books?
I've always written poetry. I never felt like I was any good. There's still some doubt there as well, whether I'm any good at it. But
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I've written poetry since I was in high school. I never would show it to anyone. I would just stick it in a manila envelope or whatever, and it would never see the light of day. It was just me writing down my feelings or whatever.
Sure.
You know, mostly stuff like "fuck this place," "I hate this guy,"
Yeah,
"this chick
right,
broke my heart," "she's," you know, whatever. My parents don't understand me, stuff like that.
Right.
You know, basic 90s emo.
Sounds familiar.
It wasn't until shortly after Five Iron got together, Shannon, I was sharing some of the stuff that I had written recently with this friend of mine, with Shannon. And she's like, "Would you mind if I just drew this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, take it with you. I don't care. Go ahead." So she started drawing. Like, she took a couple poems home, and, you know, she drew up these little sketches and stuff. I was like, "Wow, that's really great. You know, you make me look really good."
That's cool.
And you know, let me take a couple more home, and then eventually it kind of turned into, yeah, we should put this together and really work on these and put this into a book. And that turned into, why don't you write a couple short stories to throw in there as well? And you know, I had written a few short stories in college and stuff like that, but a few of those short stories ended up in there, and now all of a sudden I really enjoy writing. I really enjoy going places in my mind that are different and unique, and trying to write in a way that is very descriptive, but not in just like the wall is red, you know, the floor is brown. Like, you know, like really using colorful descriptive words. I don't know. I mean, as far as my poetry goes, it's really just when I go back and I read the stuff in October, it's very self-absorbed. It's a lot of grumbling and moaning, which is, you know, I mean, that's where I was at the time when I wrote a lot of this stuff. So,
Sure.
you know, I was in a kind of a dark place, and so I wrote a lot of dark stuff, and it was very woe is me. I'm trying to get out of that kind of frame of mind. I still want to write horror. Two of the stories in there could be considered horror stories.
Nice.
But
Into it.
what I want to do now is write horror that's aimed at a younger generation. Because like when I was becoming interested in horror and stuff like that, it was all, I mean, it was the mid 80s, you know.
Sure.
So it was a lot of like Freddy and Jason and stuff like that.
Right.
Which really wasn't good on my, you know, 11-year-old psyche.
Right.
You know, I just, you know, the first film I ever saw that was a horror movie was Frankenstein with my dad.
Okay.
And that really made an impression on me. These other films were just, there's no story. There's nothing happening. It's just a dude that's going around, you know, cutting people up, or like, you know, it's like Taco Bell of horror movies, right? You know, it's just a different way to stuff the meat and beans in a thing.
And at
you
the
know,
end,
but it's
everybody
all
gets diarrhea.
exactly.
Sure.
So, but Frankenstein had a story.
Yeah.
And it, you know, as I got a little bit older, I was always obsessed with that story.
Yeah.
And as I got a little bit older, I started to understand that Frankenstein isn't, well, the monster isn't actually a monster. I shouldn't say Frankenstein, because Frankenstein isn't the name of the monster. The name of the monster is Adam.
Right.
But the monster isn't actually a monster. He didn't have any say in this at all. He's a tragic figure.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, he didn't want to, like, he put this, you know, Victor Frankenstein put this brain into this guy and lit him up with a lot of electricity, and all of a sudden he's back from the dead, and he doesn't know, he's, you know, it's he has no part in it. And in the end, he becomes the scapegoat.
Right.
Something for the mob to direct their anger towards, and that's the really scary part to me.
Yeah.
The mob mentality, right? When I got older, I understood. Oh, it's the mob. The mob is the scary part. I think that's why that story resonates with me, and I think that's a concept that I think in our culture we sort of talk down to children and dumb everything down for them, but it wasn't like that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Like my parents didn't necessarily censor themselves. Like I didn't watch like Scarface when I was in grade school, but there were films that were on TV that I was allowed to watch that I guess some people would shelter their children from these days.
Yeah.
We're afraid of our children getting hurt by the slightest little thing, and
Right.
there's some legitimacy to that. I mean, but at the same time, you have to learn on your own a little bit.
Kids are resilient.
Yeah. And so I want to write these stories that are heavy concepts, but something that a kid can read and go, oh, this is a cool story because it's horror and it's fiction and, it's got whatever, vampires, and I can relate to that. But on a deeper level, it's about something else. Like the book I'm working on right now, it's called Victor. The core of the story is about rage and what to do with your rage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And anger, being so angry and full of rage and just, that you're just going to bite somebody in the neck and just suck out all their blood because you're so angry, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a horrible thought, and it's got blood in it and stuff like that. But the overall theme of it is learning how to manage your rage. But I don't want to spoon feed that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I always hate, like, one thing I hate about network television and sitcoms is they always fucking spoon feed you the moral at the end.
Right.
Like, I got it already. I know. Yeah. I don't need you to patronize me at the end of the show. I already know. Just throw a joke in and it'll be better.
Right.
But there's always, well, I guess when you look at the other side of life, you always da-da-da-da.
So I guess you hated 90s sitcoms.
Oh. I honestly, like, Friends is one of the worst shows I've ever fucking seen in my life. That is pure hot garbage.
It doesn't age well.
No, it doesn't.
It really hasn't aged well. And speaking of things relating to the LGBTQ community, rewatching that show in recent years, it's
not woke.
It's a tough look for some of the characters, especially Chandler, and the way, like, there's so many like anti-gay references on that show, and there are people that are like that defend it and say, oh well, you can't go back and sort of it was a certain time, and it's like, well, it wasn't good still. Like I think we can retrospectively look back on certain shows and be like,
did you ever watch Mr. Show?
Oh,
right,
yes.
yeah.
Do you remember the what were they called? Indomitable Spirit, that episode?
Yeah.
The drummer with no arms.
Right.
Like, you guys just don't like me because I don't have any arms. Well, having no arms helps, but it really is just because you're just a shitty drummer.
Right.
Yeah, but that's because I don't have any arms.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Like I said, it doesn't help.
Right.
But mostly you just suck.
Yeah, I think getting back to your point though, Andy, I think you're right that like some of the stuff that made the biggest impression on me as a little kid is the stuff that was kind of ambiguous, or I didn't really know how to sort it out. And so that tension actually helped form me, and maybe it was like a little uncomfortable at the time, but it's, I've got 2 little kids too, and I'm thinking about how to introduce them to stuff that's kind of scary that, I thought it was kind of good for me to be scared a little bit when I was little about some stuff. So
what about
think
Alvin
about
Schwartz, the scary stories to tell in the dark?
Yeah.
That's great.
That was huge. Like, talk about illustrations that on their
that will
own
warp your brain
they're
forever.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the stories on their own, but this sort of like
Yeah.
minimalistic
Yeah.
ink drawings that were very like thread like and very
Yeah.
eerie and
It's a perfect example because I was like, I am drawn to this and it horrifies me, but like I
Yeah.
need it in my brain.
yeah.
So
Because it felt wrong in a way, like there was something like I shouldn't be looking at something,
Sure.
but it's for kids, I guess, but it felt like I was getting away with something.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about staring into the abyss that's attractive to certain people,
yeah.
you know. And I think that horror fiction and horror movies and stuff like that sort of lend itself well to that certain personality.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is it doesn't make you a dark or morbid person because you want to look there. And I think that there are kids that want to look there and talk about this stuff, you know, like my son, he's all full of the hard questions right now. You know what I mean? And he just, he wants to, he has this thing where he says to me, Dad, let's watch Dracula again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we'll watch, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. I'm not going to show him 30 Days of Night,
Sure.
but I will take him a little bit closer
Yeah.
to that dark place, but I'm going to hold his hand on the way there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's great.
I'm going to let him know I'm there, and we'll stare into the abyss together and sort of look at that dark place and try and figure out what it's all about.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
What I love about Lovecraft,
Totally. I was just going to say, talk about staring into the abyss. It doesn't get much more like Cthulhu, Lovecraftian than that.
I just reread The Rats in the Walls because I heard they're making a picture.
Yeah.
A movie
so
about it.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that story, man.
Yeah.
I wrote a poem. It's not in October, but it's similar to, in some ways, it's similar to Poe's The Conqueror Worm.
Okay.
But it's about rats.
Cool. I want to see it.
I don't know if it'll ever.
Okay.
I think we posted it on our Instagram.
Okay. Cool.
But it's called A Congregation of Rats, and it's rats were here before we were here, and they'll probably be here after we're gone.
Interesting.
And it may be them that wipes us out. We don't know. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have rats almost wiped out the whole entire human population?
Yeah.
Right.
It was like the plague and smallpox and stuff like that. I mean, but they survive it.
Yeah. Totally.
Speaking of rats, I saw that you're a Ghost fan. I was wondering what you thought about the new their prequel album that came out last year that had the song. It's
I
like,
think it's rubbish.
you really
Ooh, hot take.
I hate it. I
you
think
hate
it's garbage.
it. See, it's one of those albums that has a lot of Ghost fans divided. There are not a lot of people who are in the middle. There are people who either it brings about a lot of strong opinions.
And the thing is like I don't know if you listen to Opeth at all, but I like the direction that they went. Like, they started with like a straight up black metal band, and now they're like this kind of doom metal prog rocky thing.
Okay.
And I love it, but it's authentic, it's genuine. I think that the new Ghost album is, I don't know,
I think it's
I don't like it. I liked Rats, but all of the other songs, Dance Macabre,
yeah.
It's terrible. It's garbage.
It's very arena rock.
Yeah.
And not one but two instrumentals and sax solos and
like, what the fuck is a sax doing in a metal song?
yeah. It was a very hard turn. I mean, it still has a lot of the same imagery, but there are some songs on there that aren't my favorite. I still think Meliora is probably their best
That's
album.
their best.
To me, it's crazy to see a band that's just like this in your face with satanic imagery, so popular and so mainstream. They played on Colbert. It's nuts to me, but yeah, I still would like to see them.
I was so excited for this record, and I was so disappointed when I finally got to listen to the whole thing. Even when Rats came out, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a little different, but I can dig this. I like this." And then I saw the video, and he's doing like pirouettes and shit like that. I'm like, "What the fuck is going on with this band?"
Yeah,
this is Spinal Tap bizarre, guys.
Yeah,
like this isn't like I'm going a new direction. This is None More Black. That's what this is.
Once I heard about the lead singer kind of dicking over a lot of his bandmates, I was like, oh man, I really don't know how to feel about this band. And I like the record. I know it's certainly different than their previous records, and I think I'm just gonna need to deal with the fact that maybe they aren't really gonna go back to that metal sound that they kind of started with Opus Eponymous. I mean, that was, they haven't really put out a record like that in a long time. So I don't know.
I liked the band because they weren't what you expected when you looked at the album cover,
right?
And you saw this
Yeah.
overtly satanic cover art and stuff
Right.
like that, and this weird imagery. You expected a typical black metal band, right? It's like
and
some
not so
Norwegian
many
black metal,
not so many beautiful melodies and harmonies.
Yeah. Which is what I like about the band, is that
Right.
I think they write, well, they have written really good songs, but I mean, Cerise is a great freaking song, man.
It is.
In fact, that is what got me into the band, was that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a little Johnny come lately on that, but that, when I heard the new record, man, I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is just weird, and I hated the new mask, dude.
I too am not into. I'm not into it either.
With the mustache, he looks like a child molester. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, I am more of a fan of the
Papa too.
The Papa look as opposed to Cardinal. It's not really my thing. He looks just so much more badass. He's like wearing a goddamn fedora and everything. Like, he looks like Lou Bega.
Yeah, he does.
Anyway, Ghost aside, would you want to read anything from your? I don't know how the book is set up. If you want to read any of a passage or anything from Little, because I know you got the books recently, right?
Yeah, hold on, I got some copies over here. It's just a few lines from the middle of a book. It's a children's book, so it's not very long.
Sure.
Little's quandary soon turned to fright. She ran to the shadows away from the light. Into an alley by a trash can and mop, she turned her eyes to the buildings up top. Way past the glass cleaning machines, she found the source of the most hideous screams.
Cool. I'm very excited to read this.
So, where can people find a copy of either of your books, or both?
You could go to our Facebook page or our Instagram page, which is Ink and Tea, or at Ink and Tea. It's ink as in ink with a pen, and tea as in tea that you drink. Or you can go to our website. This is very 90s, since we were talking about 90s. Go to our website at www.ink-and-tea.com. That's ink-n, the word end, MxPx-specific-t.com.
And that's an HTTPS : before that too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Make sure you put a semicolon.
That logo is badass. Well done. The skull on the fountain pen.
If you want, I could read something from
Yes.
October.
Yes,
Yeah,
do.
go for it.
This is just a little snippet. I haven't read this in a long time, so bear with me. But this is called The Painter, and it's just a little 2-page story, and it's very dark
Cool.
stuff. I like it. You'll love it. It's crazy dark, and
Awesome.
there's crazy things. Starts with a quote from Macbeth. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The Painter. The apartment was the paradigm of luxurious living one could hope to acquire in a city full of sycophants and malignants. Quite respectable indeed. One could practically see the money dripping from the walls. That is, if it weren't for all the blood. Kane made quick work of the place, and the newlywed couple, a couple of high-dollar parasites that rented the Midtown flat in New York City, of his entire body of work, this would truly be the apex of his endeavors. The 15-foot high wall behind the silk-laden California king, with white headboard and gold leaf inlay, looked like a Jackson Pollock painting. Kane really took his time with this one. No rush. He had plenty of time to complete his work. The spray and splatter, like peacock feathers, in various shades of red and pink that made graceful lines as they oozed from the more saturated splatters. The perfectly placed splashes that dotted the chandelier created a spectral ambience for his magnum opus as they cast ghostly shadows about the room. He was careful not to make too much of a mess of the gold silk sheets. He needed just enough blood to add contrast and depth to his work. The bodies were positioned in a lover's embrace, and he folded the bloodied sheets in the shape of flowers around the corpses. He had broken both of their ring fingers and had left on their left hands. Finally, the piece de resistance, his maker's mark, at the foot of the bed, on the white oak floor, painted in the subject's blood, he wrote the words, "Death comes to us all the same." Patient, cool, calculated, the mark of a true artist, and like most artists, unappreciated in his time. Once he was satisfied with his achievement, Kane carefully stripped off the blue plastic jumpsuit and hairnet. He stepped into the restroom and began to run the shower. Out of a small duffel bag, he produced a pair of gray trousers, red and white checkered button-down shirt, a pair of fresh blue jockeys, black socks, a pair of Italian leather shoes, suspenders, a cravat and pocket square, a black pork pie hat, and a gray tweed jacket, which he hung carefully on the hanger. He discarded the plastic outfit and pulled out a new pair of booties to replace the old ones that he had soiled from his work. Careful not to make a mess, he folded the blood-spattered clothes, put them in a plastic bag, and placed them in the now empty duffel before stepping into the shower. The water was like a baptism, and all of his sins were washed away as traces of crimson spray and coagulated spots slowly diluted into soap and water. It all disappeared down the drain. Brahms' funeral chant played softly in the deepest caverns of his subconscious. Kane bowed his head, closed his eyes, and prayed. Dear Lord, forgive me of my sins and transgressions. I am truly sorry for what I've done. I accept you into my heart as I have done so many times before. I ask for your grace to wash away my sins and to let your sacrifice make me new so I can continue your work and spread a message of faith, hope, and love through your gospel until the day of our holy judgment on mankind. Amen. Kane got out of the shower, toweled himself off, produced a bottle of bleach to sterilize the bathtub, placed the towel in the plastic bag. Then he took his time to get dressed and comb his hair perfectly. He placed the pork pie hat carefully over his newly coiffed hair and pulled the brim a touch to adjust it. After putting on a new pair of booties over the fine leather Italian shoes, Kane made his way to the telephone and dialed 911. I'd like to report an incident, a murder in fact. he said, as calmly as if he were giving directions to the gas station. He walked to the front door of the flat, stopping halfway to check himself briefly in the hallway mirror, took off his booties at the door, and stuffed them into the duffel bag. He opened the door and said under his breath, "Blessings to all who enter here, for this is the house of the Lord." He crossed himself, closed the door behind him, and in a puff of dust, Cain, the prophet of the Most High God, vanished into the ether.
Wow. That is heavy and dark and profound.
But that is The Painter.
Cool. Wow. Thank you so much for reading, man.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Is this a just a single story, or is this a character that comes back?
No, it's not. I mean, I think originally I had thought about bringing him back and maybe making an entire story out of it, but I think I just like it as so. The whole point of the story to me when I wrote it is sort of explained by the first little blurb from Macbeth. We're just these people that walk around and are sort of, we're just fools that blindly go through life, and there's no sort of recourse for actions or anything like that. And, the whole bit where he calls 911 really reminded me of Dennis Rader it was sort of a callback to Dennis Rader when he called the police to let them know that there was a homicide, and told them where the address was and stuff like that. It's just kind of painting a scene of what a sociopath must be thinking in their mind when they do this stuff. A psychopath is someone who has no concept of emotion,
right,
and is incapable of empathy,
right.
And it just makes it all the more weird with all the religious stuff in there.
Yeah, it does.
I feel it tied together a lot of things we've talked about tonight.
Yeah, the just absolute disconnect between the two,
right.
The two things that, especially with a lot that's in the evangelical world these days, where they can espouse so much about morality and family values on one hand, and on the other hand, lift up Donald Trump as the greatest president.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
we'll leave it at that.
Little will be available on February 11th. So.
Yes, it's available right now for pre-sale.
Okay.
So you can go to either our website, or there's a link in our bio on Instagram, and also lots of posts on it on our Facebook page. So if you go to either of those, you'll be able to be directed to where you can go to buy the book.
Right on.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate you taking the time, and we absolutely look forward to seeing you in Chicago.
Yeah.
In just, I guess, 2 months from today.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We'll have some fun.
All right. Take care.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
there.
All right, John, this has been a fun episode. Want to thank Andy Verdecchio for giving us time today.
Yes, it was fun to stare into the abyss with him.
And
He's a cool dude.
He's a cool dude. We're super pumped about him bringing the Thunder with 5 Iron in March. The MXPX show. If you don't have tickets, then too bad, because they are both now officially sold out.
Yep.
Much like John sold out years ago.
Sure.
I mean, once he gave up his Tiger Jack,
yeah, it's all downhill from there.
It's all downhill.
Yeah, go check out Ink and Tea Publishing to get those Andrew Verdecchio books.
Yes.
Thanks again to Andy, and if you would like to tell us what you thought about that conversation or anything else, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can subscribe or rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Send us an email at magnifiedpod@gmail.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 872-762-4763, 872-7-MAG-POD.
If you want to keep the MagPod train running on schedule, you can support us over at our Patreon, patreon.com/magnifiedpod. And on the next episode, we are not exactly sure what we'll cover, but it'll be something tertiarily related to MXPX. And whatever we talk about, when we do, it'll be about time for a podcast at our house. And it wouldn't be the same without you. So join us, won't you?